So that's where I would like to talk about is the as applied data. And the as applied data is just like yield data. We've been talking about as applied data for 20 years almost. Yield data we've been talking about for 20 years. Yield data was very hard to work with. It's gotten a lot easier. As applied data, I feel it's been is kind of in that same category that it's been very difficult. Most of your controllers are creating some sort of application data, but then what are we doing with it? Are we just bringing it into a software, looking at it for yields? What else can we tie into it? How much agronomic information are we getting from it? What type of decisions are you making financially or agronomic? And I was looking to go a little bit down the financial path here, and so stuff is getting a lot easier. I would look at a AChem floater that was still using the 3.5-inch floppy drives this spring, writing prescriptions to a 3.5-inch floppy drive being uploaded into a Colvin tube. Now we can take that same machine, and it's being done at the moment. That same machine is being converted over to GreenStar system. Now we can send prescriptions to it wirelessly. Its application data can then be sent back to my John Deere Operations Center wirelessly. And it wasn't a new purchase, but it was installing some updated software and hardware into an existing machine. New equipment, this stuff is all coming pretty well stocked. The presentation is going to focus a little bit more green situated, but it's all available red or green, depending on what preference you have on the farm. If you're red, AFS Connect is a software out there. That's going to be very similar to My John Deere, which is what I'm going to go into to a degree here. AFS Connect is there. Ag Affinity is another software platform that your application data can go into. And Climate Field View. Is anybody using, and then there's the Operations Center. Is anybody using any of that data? Software platforms, which ones? KHI, Climate. Yep, Climate View. Yep, so these softwares are out there on the market where you're looking at bringing that stuff into, whether it's moving it from a USB or using the gateway. Okay, so looking at doing this through just kind of took one field for a little bit of an example here. So this field is just a large field that using just for an example. Rate the prescription for this field. It is 317 acres on the prescription. I want to tailor this a little bit towards the financials. So when you're putting together a budget, put together budgets for fields. This field is say underneath soybeans. For the presentation purposes, is this field is soybeans. You got your seed, chemical, fertilizer, and fields like this in Ramsey County, Nelson County. Every application operation is going to be a little bit different as far as acres are concerned. Okay, so when this field is seeded and things bring into My John Deere here, we have all the different applications that has been performed in 2022. There's also applications that were performed in 2021 that were probably done for the 2022 growing season. And then there's application done in the 2022 growing season that could be because of the 2021, 2022 growing season. And as I've been going here, I remembered what I forgot to load up or some PDFs here. So I'm going to lift this a little bit and just jump into My John Deere. Okay, I had this all on PDFs and I forgot to load it into this computer. It's on my computer. So using this application data, all coming into an operations center, again, whichever one that you're utilizing, I'm going to come down here and start in 2021 on a tillage application. So this is for this year's soybeans. And whether or not you want to use this 2021 operation into your 2022 financials. This is after harvest of 2021's corn. Where does that data belong into? That's for your operation to kind of decide where that goes. But if I'm going to use this as part of my 2022 soybeans, is what goes into growing soybeans this year. Remember, the prescriptions that I write for this field are 318 acres, but yet the tillage application was 468 acres. The fuel used 137.9, 0.3 gallons per acre, 10 gallons per hour. And that information, how these controllers, I think, is becoming very useful to be able to use for your financials. Not much else in here as far as just a regular tillage pass, but where I see some of this coming down the pipeline to even be able to print out your tillage maps is if you're entering into any carbon programs. This year I was part of a carbon project, went around the was registered in for that. They have to be able to provide documentation of what they're doing for tillage. So if this was just happened to be a vertical tillage pass and it was the only pass for the field, got the application data, this could all be submitted if you're in any type of carbon programs. Not here to advocate for carbon programs, just talking these things. I believe this data is going to be valuable for that type of things through FSA type programs to have that simple to print out. From there, it just keeps going on into what is going on for the 22. So now we're in 2022. There was no application made to this field between that tillage pass and soybean seeding on May 28th, went right into it. So now, remember, it was 318 acres when this field gets a prescription written for it. The planting data on this field was 276. All is going to make a difference on this grower has a planter for soybeans that can be planted with a planter or an air seeder. Those applications or how this field is planted, the air seeder has section controls, but longer sections. The planter is individual section controls. So there would be some difference on acres. So if I'm going through and want to analyze this stuff afterwards, at the end of the season, what does it take to plant the soybeans with an air seeder and corn versus the planter? There's a lot that goes into it. Weed control goes into it. Again, the fuel, how many acres are planted, the overlap, all this stuff is expensive, especially if you're putting down seed and fertilizer in that same application. So we can look at applied rates and print something out there. We're going to take this data here in a minute and move it into a software called Harvest Profit. So this will all come into play here shortly. But 276 acres, 45 pounds per acre, all the totals come in there. And this is all done just in real time running that tractor. 1152, there's a little bit of 1152 that went down with this, same acreage. The fuel would be with the same pass. Came across it with a roller, 419 acres on the roller. This tractor didn't have the fuel on there. And so as we're migrating into being able to have the equipment with this technology, I mean, some of this is based on your farm. Maybe you got one tractor capable of doing this at the moment, but as we progress and purchase updated equipment, maybe install some of this stuff in older equipment. So the roller there, I'll spend a little bit of time just on this pre-application. I'm going to click on the applied rate. I'm going to go to data analysis is here. And I guess it's in summaries. And this is what I think is going to become very valuable for those that are able to collect this data. Is right here, we have our application rate, target rate, but then we have the specific list of products in here on the printout. It's in here. Looking for it here. I'll click on G mix. So, oh yeah, Roundup, MSO, AMS, and then water is a carrier. in a few moments, as we get into harvest profit, I'll show how all this stuff comes in here. Now you can just start tying your financial information, what these products cost to this. So, I mean, nothing too crazy here, rates that you folks are using out there, but the sprayer went up and down the field. This map was generated automatically. The other part here with the sprayer is the temperature, average, start, and end. Daryl Richardson talked yesterday about the Delta T. This sprayer has a weather station on it, so this has the Delta T on there. Where is this information going to come in handy? I think as we progress within wide here in other industries with ESGs and where it seems like the world is going, I think this information is going to be useful for the farm to have record of this. Within the United States, there is counties, areas with fertilizer that you are limited to how much you can apply at one time. That can easily expand on for fertilizer or for chemical applications. We will talk about that a little more when we get into a fertilizer application. But this information is here. Date, time, wind speed, wind direction, Delta T is all there. There's the post application. Again, everything is going, all that information is going to be available for the grower. It's all entered into the controller. It's all calculated out. It all automatically goes into My John Deere. And then we're going to move it into harvest profit here shortly. I do want to click on that one. Okay, so as you're putting together financials and budgeting and looking at the end of the year and tracking your expenses, and maybe you're a soybean grower and a pinto bean grower, and so you do like to know, I usually have to spray a couple more applications on my pintos and see where that money is being spent. Here's with this application data, here's a good example of this field needed a little bit of a second application in there. And so it just only added up being 12 acres, but was an expense for that field for the soybean operation. It was a good pre-down, good post. Maybe you have fields that you didn't put a pre, and now at the end of the year, you can look at and go, okay, I ended up having to spray 2 post applications on that field. In a moment, we'll see what that costs, and you can make decisions and evaluate your operation from there. Then we get into soybean harvest. And again, it was 318 acres that gets mapped out for a prescription. Area harvest 260. So like if you're just trying to put together an Excel spreadsheet budget and your field, you get one chance to put in an acreage number, and you take that acreage number times your projected chem price and your projected fertilizer price, you can see where all of these numbers on fields in our area just are crazy differences in acres. And then a fall tillage pass. And then this one doesn't have that fuel usage in there. It was a different tillage pass than last fall's. And if you had a piece of equipment that was recording that fuel usage, or you're maybe on the farm, you have a chisel plow and a vertical tillage, you really want to evaluate which one is acres per hour more efficient. Maybe it's a fuel thing. You can really very easily look at all that here. I do have a cornfield, but at the moment, I'm just going to jump right into harvest profit and why I talked about all of that stuff specifically. And so as we're moving into being able to collect this data fairly easily, and you're making your purchases on the farm, you have that. I bought 1152 for $800 a ton, maybe about 50 ton. Then you go make another purchase, and in today's volatility, that purchase might be $400 a ton, $200 a ton difference. You bought 100 ton at that lower price, and now you bought 50 ton. Where is your price weighted average at? How late in the year do you go till you really know what you expensed on fertilizer? How late in the year do you know? Do you wait till you know what it costs you to grow a crop? Here, by putting this in, so like right now, we can track our inputs. So I got some map purchase. There's a running cost on there. If I'm making multiple purchases, I can put that in there, the amount, the tons. This is just an example here, and it's going to give me that weighted average. So for this particular field,
I got a weighted average of 887 on my map. Corn, I can choose things by crop here, or this map could go on all crops. For the soybeans that we discussed, the only fertilizer that went on there was MAP. But on the cornfield, I do want to bring into a cornfield here as well. At NH3 had a MAP AMS blend on it and used a 624-6 pop. All of those can be put in here. So there's your fertilizer. There's your seed. How many of you guys know your seed costs right now? Maybe you know your seed cost perfectly. You may have already prepaid all of your seed. You have it. Where's that information? Let's just put it right here, shove it into harvest profit. We can put our costs in here, whether it's we're breaking it out per pound or per 80,000 bag, 80,000 kernel bag. We have that in here. Chemical. You guys might already even know your chemicals. Okay, may have prepaid some of that. Maybe this information isn't being put in here until in season when you're buying it. But if you're putting together maybe a 2023 budget, these are probably your chemicals for corn and soybeans. And you could probably use this year's chemical price and get a pretty good idea and pretty good budget put together. Maybe you want to add 5% or 2% to that price. You can do that. And then as you purchase, you can come in here and put your real purchases in. Overhead inputs. I like harvest profit for tracking all of that specific field inputs. When it comes to overhead inputs, this is where you would get your information from your Quicken or QuickBooks or your farm financials that you're doing. And what would you have there? Crop insurance could be a category. Fuel could be a category. I look at doing fuel a little bit different because for this particular example, I have 90% of the fuel usage to a T of what went into that crop. That point will come together here in a minute. But for fuel, you can get very accurate on here, plus your fuel purchases. Labor, I know I can go back and I can look at the time it took to till that soybean field, harvest that soybean field, roll the soybean field, and I can start really accurately tracking man hours per crop or per entity in here. So I kind of know where those numbers are coming from. Repairs, that's off your Quicken when you do your budgeting or you do your end of the year and you look at your categories and you spend $25,000 on repairs. That's where that number goes in there. Maybe you can take it and put it per crop. Maybe it's on all crops. I could chose a number here and went and did all my crops. Okay. This example is created for a little bit longer of a presentation to go through one soybean field and one corn field. But the repairs in there, drawing, payments and depreciation. What's your equipment cost? You have that from your Quicken QuickBooks software. What it costs you to run your farm as your overhead. That can come in here. Can you break it down by crop? Maybe, maybe not. You might look at, hey, I got a lot more equipment investment into my corn than I say do wheat. And you could weigh them differently depending on how precise you want to get. Or you could just come in here and put payment depreciation and choose all your crops that you roll. Other, real quickly, real simply, what are some other things that you may want to add here to track your prices? What else is on your budget? How are you folks keeping track of a budget? Excel spreadsheet? Is anybody using harvest profit? What else should go on to a budget? Cole, you got any other off the top? Crop scouting? Any hired crop scouting? Do your own out there on the match check operation? Yeah. Okay, so that might not be an expense you need here. Somebody else might need the $4 an acre crop scouting expense. And put that in there. I write prescriptions. I have to buy software. Maybe I have a software expense. This is all up to you. You can just add another category here, label it, add it in. Okay, so I got a little deep there. Why do we do that? For this part right here. Let this spin here for a moment. And this is what I'm looking at is applications. So I can take, this is that Cozy Acres field. I'm going to click on there. It's harvest profit is synced with my John Deere. All my applications from this field for my John Deere are sitting right here. They're tied together from the back. And I'm just going to delete this. I already have things moved over. I'm going to delete planting. Okay, now it ends up over here. 2022, right here's my seeding or planting. I'm going to move it from my John Deere. This table here is all in my John Deere. I'm going to move it into my harvest profit. Gives me a cost per acre. How does it do that? I'm just going to look at editing it. It brought it in. There's the variety that was in the controller on the tractor. That variety was in harvest profit with a price on it. There's the acres came in from my John Deere. There's a cost. With every application, it's right there. So your fertilizer application maybe was 10 acres more than your seeding application. I can use the correct acres for that fertilizer, for that seed. Okay. My spraying, let's just look at spraying. Start post-emerge. Here's my pre-emerge application. I can just look at that real quick. It just brings it all in there. I have my Roundup. This came in from my John Deere. There's the acres, 142.6. There was actually two different applications, so it doubles up here. There was a 69 acre start stop, 142 start stop. And so it looks a little doubled up, but that was the reason behind that. But there's my cost per unit. My cost per acres are in there. I can finish that out. These are kind of made up numbers. I just threw numbers in here. So don't evaluate the numbers. This is just all demonstration. But you put your correct numbers in there. This is a correct number in here going forward. Okay. All your different fields are in there like that, or all your different applications. Okay. I didn't go through it, but here's part of the presentation is a cornfield, because I do want to show you just two different crops to show you a little bit of advantage I think Harvest Profit has when doing budgets and looking at financials. Here's all the stuff from our corn crop on a different field. Okay, so this pretend farm for today's pretend presentation, I'm running two crops, just corn and soybeans on two fields. Okay, brought this all over from my John Deere. It is all accurate cost per acres, all calculated per the acre of that specific application. I am then going to move to yields, and I can look at my yields by, let's go to soybeans. So there's my soybeans. I only had the one field of soybeans. It was at Cozy's. There's my 317 acres because say me, the farm manager on this field, this is what I call Cozy's 317 acres, even though you can see we never applied 317 acres. You can edit this if you want to do something a little closer to say seeding acre or your fertilizer acre. This is your number. You can put that in there. So I got a planned yield of 35. That's important because this is a projection software as much as it is as the end of the year. So I can project what my yield is going to be to help me budget and do my grain marketing. And then I can put in my actual yield, whether or not I want to put in custom number or bring over a number right over from the operations center. Okay, it's telling me I got 56% higher yield than I planned. And I can click on my corn and do the same thing on my corn. So now if you have 15 fields of corn, you'd have 15 fields all here. And then you can just look at your soybeans and you can query this out by owners. So if you want to look at all your corn by a particular landowner, or maybe you farm with your dad or your brother, and so you have your field set up as you farm as one, but you want to keep track of my yield and my revenue versus my dad or my brother's revenue. I could look at just my fields. I could look at just dad's fields. I can do the same thing on the cost side. So I can break this down by overall farm, by crop, by landowner, by who's responsible for that ground, whether it's a father-son operation. And then I keep track of my hedges and contracts and hedges. I keep track. So for this particular presentation here, I sold 6,000 bushels. October 1st, 2022, I have the rest unsold. It tells me what I have unsold. It gives me somewhere, I got to find it. My average cash price should be in here. I think I'm on corn because I see a 5. I'm going to jump back to soybeans because that's what we were more or less talking about. So June 1st, sold some soybeans, all made up numbers. $12 future, 60 cents basis. So I have 12,000 bushels sold. My production was 19,000. I have unsold 7,600. It keeps track of today's current market price and would give me a number of if I was to sell out today. Maybe I don't want to sell today. Maybe I want to sell 2,000 bushels. I can come in here and add a 2,000 bushel contract. This would then move to 14,000 sold. That would then drop down to 5,600 unsold. It gives me up to date. 3 minutes left. I think I'll just kind of sum this up here. You end up with a profit loss. Again, you can categorize it by crop, by field, by farms, by owners, all sorts of different ways. The theme I wanted to go with this was just using your application data to do something with it. Okay, so I'm not trying to sell Harvest Profit or My John Deere Operations Center or any of them. Just letting you know that you're creating application data out on the farm, out in the field. There are tools to then try to put some things together to help you manage your operation. Whether that's a Harvest Profits software, or maybe you're a great Excel person and you can build an Excel. Harvest Profit is just a glorified Excel spreadsheet, and you can look at doing it that way as well. The last thing with your application data, with my minute or so, is farm tests. And this is something that I think should almost be built into every single prescription on every single field. It's some sort of test out there. If you're collecting yield data and it's going right into a, say, a My John Deere, why not take a strip, and this happens to be a different in-season product that was going on. We can then evaluate it with our software, and these strips up here, I have this queried out to show the highest yields of the field. So everything here green is the highest tier yield of the field, and you can see those 4 lines. Okay, I can get into a lot more depth here, but just to point out, make that point there. Make a test. Maybe it's as simple as taking your fertilizer applicator and doing 3 passes of 20% more nitrogen. See what you get. Maybe you don't get a yield bump to justify that 20%. Maybe we're over nitrogen. So maybe you want to do a pass, you want to break it down 20%. That is very easy to do in a prescription, is to create just a mod layer here and add 20%, take away 20%. Maybe it's a different product that you're going to add in there. So I think I used up most of my time, but any questions?
Well, thanks, Preston.
Yep.